Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me for another Tales from the Crypt review. Today it is Season 1, Episode 2, and All Through the House, directed by Robert Zemeckis and starring Mary Ellen Trainor and Larry Drake. And just a heads up, once again, there will be some episode spoilers involved. So, the first thing that's interesting about this episode is that it is a holiday-themed episode, which seems kind of strange, especially because from what I could tell, the original air date of this episode was nowhere near the holidays or Christmas at all, but I guess you just have to go with what they give you. So anyway, this is actually seems to be one of the more popular episodes of the show, and I have to say overall, while I think it's a solid, entertaining episode, I actually think that the first episode was a little bit stronger overall, and I'll get into that as I go through this episode. I actually think this episode starts out very, very strong for about the first 15 minutes or so. Unfortunately, about the last 5 minutes or so, I think aren't quite as strong. But this is still a memorable and entertaining episode. So we start with the Crypt Keeper dressed as Santa Claus, which I actually thought was pretty funny for an introduction, and then we go to a husband and wife who seem like a normal couple, and I have to say there's this touching Christmas music playing in the background. I thought the use of Christmas music in this episode was pretty funny and worked pretty well. So anyway, they seem like a normal couple until the wife kills the husband just like that to start the episode, which had to be pretty shocking if you were watching this for the first time. And I have to say the wife doesn't really show too much remorse about it, which probably isn't a good thing for the fate of her character down the road. We also learn at this point that the couple have a little girl, and she mentioned Santa Claus at this point, but I have to say the little girl seems just to be a plot device and is kind of underused throughout the episode. But it is what it is. So Santa Claus will be important. I'll come back to him in a little bit. So eventually we learn that the wife, Elizabeth, I believe is her name, she killed her husband basically for money and to be with another man. Pretty typical plot, I have to say. So eventually she drags the husband's body outside. I guess she's going to get rid of it. We also learn there's a killer on the loose dressed in a Santa Claus outfit. But then there's this weird scene where the husband is like still alive for a few seconds, but then he just kind of passes out, it looked like, outside. Now he's really dead. I'm not sure really what the point of this scene was, but it's suspenseful enough, so I'll just let it pass. But it was kind of abrupt and strange. So eventually, this leads to the wife running into our killer dressed as Santa Claus. And I have to say the wife here is pretty resourceful, considering that this is a guy that's already been on a killing spree. She gets in some pretty good shots. So eventually she gets back inside and calls the police until she realizes that by doing this, she'll be in trouble for the murder she committed. So she hangs up, but the police call her back and say they'll be sending somebody out to check on her very soon because they're checking up on the whole neighborhood, which leads her to a problem because obviously she committed a murder. So then she comes up with, I have to say, a pretty smart idea that she'll say that Santa killed her husband, and I guess that she basically got rid of him in self-defense. So that seems like it'll work, except the problem is that eventually Santa Claus is gone. He's still alive, which leads us to a scene where it looks like he's going to go after the little girl. The little girl sees him through the window, and it looks like he's climbing upstairs. So, of course, the wife, Elizabeth, gets nervous, and eventually she gets, up to where the little girl should be, but no one's there. So at this point, she comes back down the stairs, and Santa Claus is there with the little girl, and the little girl says she invited him in, which seems a little off and a little confusing to me. It seemed like Santa could have got in on his own anyway, but whatever. The whole last 3 or 4 minutes of this seemed a little bit rushed and a little bit disjointed to me, but my real issue is with the ending. We basically cut away to the wife character Elizabeth just screaming, and Santa's with the little girl, and the Crypt Keeper tells us don't worry about the little girl, that Santa likes older women. But I have to say I question this decision. Now, I don't always need to see all the blood, guts, and killings on a show or in an episode, but here, from a narrative purpose, the episode started with the wife killing her husband. It would have made sense to have seen what happened to her, not just to cut away. It just seemed like an odd and unsatisfying decision to me, and I can't really blame the length of the episode because this episode's actually about 3 or 4 minutes shorter than most of the other episodes, so I'm not really sure why they chose to go this route. Others may find it satisfying. I just found the end of this episode disappointing. It was like all that great build-up, and it is great. That doesn't really lead to a satisfying last scene, in my opinion. But overall, this is still a very solid episode that I feel like fans of the series will enjoy. And I'm going to give All Through the House a 3 out of 5. So a solid episode. Basically, for me, it's like 15 great minutes, followed by 5 okay minutes. Still a good episode, though. So a 3 out of 5 for an All Through the House. And as always, thank you very much for watching.